stitching in the barn. It's actually stitching in the barn, but I always seem to say it that way. I'm Valerie, and today is January... Yoni, what day is it today? Never mind. It is... Oh, I know, it's Tuesday the 29th. Tuesday the 29th of January. And I'm explaining to you what's happening today is we are going to visit a friend and neighbor who for many years had a redware business, redware pottery, and also does fantastic samplers. So I can't wait to show you her house and her beautiful things, and for you to meet Kay Shaeff of Springhouse Peddler, and I think you're going to be excited. So come on. Hi Flosstube, I'm in the car today. And hang on a second. I'm just backing out of our garage. There we go. We are going on a trip. I have to show you though, it's snowing. So, oh, there you can see our beehives too, or beehive singular, because we lost a bunch of beehives. We're hoping to get some more. But we are going to a friend's house today who has lovely samplers. So I think you're in for a real treat. I hope so. Anyway, I will talk to you later. I'm heading down the driveway. Off we go. Hello, I am in the home of my friend and neighbor Kay Shaeff, who is an extraordinary craftswoman. She and her husband Bob have for many years had a business called the Springhouse Peddler. I had to look down because I get so nervous that I'm going to say it wrong. And I would probably do best just to be quiet and let Kay tell you about it, because she did this for many years. And we're in her beautiful house, and if you were here, you would see that she and her husband have an amazing love and appreciation for history and things historic, because everything in this house is beautiful and just, you know, it could be in a museum. And I think the really cool thing is that many of the things they have made themselves, which to me, that's really extraordinary, to be such gifted craftspeople. So I think it's wonderful that Kay is allowing us to come here and to share her knowledge. And take it away, Kay. I was hoping you could tell us a little history of how you started your redware business, what got you interested, and how it evolved, and which came first, stitching, your love of stitching, or redware, or...
Stitching came first. I had been stitching samplers since the 70s. And back then, when we lived locally in Ambler, I was chairman of our Christmas bazaar at church, co-chairman. I had a friend who also did it. She was from South Africa, and she knew about Eva Rosenstrand from the Danish.
Yes.
From the Danes, and Eva Rosenstrand had counted cross stitches, and we would buy small kits for the women to take home and stitch. Well, with that, you know, I did some stamp samplers. Paragon did stamp samplers back in the 70s. They did the Chase, which is very widely known, and it was in the collection of Colonial Williamsburg, and they did several more. Well, I started with the stamp samplers, and then I progressed using, you know, the Hardanger, Iada fabrics, and then I got into the Reproduction samplers and just totally fell in love with them and learned not to use the Hardanger and the Iada. It's actually harder to stitch on that than it is to linen. And
oh, that's interesting.
I stitched and stitched and stitched, and when we moved to Texas, fortunately we lived outside of Houston, there was one lady who ran a yarn shop, and she was from Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. And she knew what sampler. So she would get in these kits that we were interested in. There were 4 women that we had a sampler group. And believe it, we were the only 4 that knew what samplers were. So I would stitch a sampler about every month.
Oh, wow.
I would finish them. So today's date, I have stitched over 100 samplers. I don't have them all in my house. I am now stitching some of the ones I've done for myself. I'm reproducing to sell. And consequently, we have not a lot of wall space left.
Yes.
So I am sharing them with people who love them like we do. When we were in Texas, we found a group of people who loved antiques. And fortunately, all the women had their own crafts. Some of them were Santa makers. Some of them did stenciling on the wall. We all loved antique furniture, but antique furniture in Texas is the oak from the 1920s, 1940s. Bob and I would look at pictures in the magazine, and he has a talent that if he sees a picture, he can build it.
Yeah.
He doesn't need measurements or anything. Consequently, we don't have a lot of antiques. We have a lot of reproductions that my husband
Which are
has
absolutely gorgeous. I can attest to this.
we met a friend down there, and she and her husband rebuilt their house from Connecticut.
Wow.
And it was fabulous. The gambrel roof, they had 8 acres. They would have, they had different buildings for their things. Well, they had a turkey shoot every year right before Thanksgiving, where we would dress in 18th century costumes. They would roast a pig on a spit outside. They would put a tent up and stay out all night doing this pig. And then a group of the antique people would come dressed in their costumes, and we would have a pig roast. We all brought something for the groaning board.
Uh-huh. Were you doing pottery at this point?
No, but she was doing redware. And Nancy would give every woman a little gift. And a lot of times it was like a turkey trivet or something that she made. Well, we became friends, and she said one day she was going to take her kiln to the dump. And I said, well, can I buy it from you? Because I'd like to make a set of dishes for myself. So I got Nancy's kiln, and I started making redware. And the redware I made was the slip redware, which is the common redware from all over the country. Basically, it came from England. Of course, it's just red clay that you take a bottle of slip, which is a liquid clay, usually white, and you would make a design
sort of
on the plate.
The wavy design.
A zigzag or something, yeah. So I started making redware doing that. That is my set of dishes. I've numbered each piece that I've made. But the Texans didn't know. They thought that was Mexican pottery, and they didn't
This is in 1980 or something,
yeah, this is, a little later. I started in 1989 down there with the redware. I also had a job, so I would come home from my job, and I would make redware. And then
you just taught yourself to do it?
Nancy told me what she did, but I used different products. I also worked at a high school, and I was very friendly with the woman who was the chairman of the art department. So she said,
give you some pointers.
Yeah, she said, if you want to eat from your redware, you need to buy from this company because they sell to schools.
And then it's food safe.
It has to be safe in order for the children to use it. Then we started, after we couldn't sell our slip pieces, we started looking at our books and find the Graffito Pieces, which are redware plates or tissue boxes or whatever, and you put a layer of slip over top of it. You take a tool, it could be a dowel, it could be a pencil, and you actually draw a design, and you draw through that liquid slip into the redware, into the red clay. That is graffito. That was done by the Pennsylvania Germans mostly, and people down there. Nancy never did a graffito piece. She did slip, and because it's local to our area here in Pennsylvania, and it just took off. I had another friend who was in the Herb Society down there, and they said, well, can you put an herb on the plate? Well, yes, I can. So the Herb Society people, 14 women, all got the plate that said rosemary on it with a design of rosemary.
Then they probably wanted the full set.
They did. Each month I would make 14 of the same thing, and the Herb Society people, and they afforded me to buy my kiln that I currently have, which is an automatic electric. All I have to do is push 3 buttons. It's like a keyboard on a telephone. So I started making redware. We did, believe it or not, we found a show. There was a show out in Round Top, which is the hill country in Texas. And the woman was an antiques dealer, and she would have an antique show twice a year, where back in the 80s and late 80s, big dealers from New England would come down to the show, and Bob and I used to go to it. Well, she decided she was going to open a folk art tent. So we said, we need to be in the folk art tent. So we did that show, pardon me, for twice a year. And I got quite a clientele from there too. So it started taking off, and I currently have made over 22,000 pieces of redware.
22,000, in case you didn't hear that. And Kay mentioned just in passing that she numbers each piece, so she knows exactly how many pieces she's made. Now, do you number all your stitching as well?
Yes, I
do. You keep any kind of a journal?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do.
There it is.
I keep it in a book. I have 98 listed in this book, and I'm on my last page.
Oh, time to get a new book.
Time to make a new book, yeah.
Now, you said you don't much like to change the threads, but you will make a notation of where you got the pattern or what linen you used?
Right. On the back of the sampler, I include the history of the sampler. I include the stitches that were used, the count of the linen, whether it's over one thread or over two threads. And then I think, usually I give the measurements too, and they're all numbered, and then I log them in my book. The ones that I do for resale, I do not number them, and they don't go in my book.
Do you put your initials on the front on the stitching?
Do. In the beginning, I didn't know where to put it. Currently now, I've learned that I do a tiny over one thread at the bottom. On the left-hand side, I'll put my name, and then on the right-hand border, I put the date where it was finished.
Okay.
I don't like odd numbers, so if I finish the sampler on the 27th of January, I won't put the 27th. I'll put the 26th or the 28th, only because I don't like odd numbers.
That's just a personal
a personal thing.
All right. When you stitch, I know the things that you do are very intricate. Do you listen to music or have the television on? Or?
I usually have the television on.
You do?
But when you're doing count and cross stitch, you miss
Yes.
probably 30% of what's on the television.
Yes.
Because it does take a lot of concentration to do it. So I can't follow them. I really don't know what story I was watching or anything.
Do you ask your husband a lot of questions?
No, he's usually asleep.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So here's in my head, I have this image of you. You're working with your hands all day because you're making all of the pottery. Then you have to cook and do whatever, and then you sit down.
That's
and
my
you have
reward.
It's your reward.
My
I was going to say,
reward.
how do you summon the energy to stay awake and stitch? But
I have to
it's
stitch.
so pleasurable.
Yeah, I'm the type of person, I don't like to read books. If you give me a magazine, I'll look at the pictures. I don't read. But I have to have something to do with my hands. Mm-hmm. And that was my reward. When we first moved up here, we were doing maybe 14, 16 shows a year. Now, since the shows are not as good in Pennsylvania, we're down to 2 this current year. But that was my reward. We have a wonderful workshop out there to make redware.
They have a barn behind their house, which is their workshop, and it's just wonderful. It's all heated, lovely.
Heated.
And her husband Bob does his woodwork out there, and Kay does her pottery making. Mm-hmm. But he does some pottery as well.
He does. Mm-hmm. He has a wheel. He does not. I drape over molds. I roll everything like a pie crust and then drape them over molds that I had to make too. So people walk in my workshop, they see all my molds and think they're pieces to be finished. Well, they're not. They're just plaster molds that I make. Most of them are made from fry pans, different size fry pans. But then I'll go into an antique store and I don't look at really the antiques themselves. I look at the shape, because if it's a good shape that I could drape clay over, I buy the piece, bring it home, grease it with Vaseline, make a plaster, and then pour the plaster into that.
And make the molds.
And make my own molds.
Oh.
Pardon me.
Let's talk a little bit about reproduction. I asked you last time I saw you about reproduction versus authentic samplers. Like, I don't think I fully understood like there's some people who will go to museums, like the website that we talked about, the Sampler, where she will pay a commission to a museum, and that allows her access to the samplers, and she can take measurements and look at the back, and and it of course adds to the cost for people buying it. But it was interesting because just recently there's a woman on Flosstube. Do you know about Flosstube?
No.
It's YouTube videos of stitchers, and that's what we're doing now.
Okay.
And people talking about stitching and talking about their stitching or things they like about stitching. And one woman I who's called the Kitten Stitcher, Teresa Finette, I think is her name, and she designs patterns called Shakespeare's Peddler.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen the name.
She was talking about she'd found a site on eBay, and she said, "Oh, these are lovely samplers, and I've not seen these." And then about a week later, she posted on Instagram a picture of the sampler with a big X through it, and she said, "Don't buy these. This is somebody, not paying the copyright or not,
really?
like who's just lifted the thing." And
Oh my.
yeah, it was interesting to me because I hadn't understood about how some people design patterns to look like old samplers. Some people are actually reproducing authentic samplers.
Right.
And the ones you like are usually the authentically reproduced ones.
Yeah, I appreciate what schooling, back in the early 1700s, 1800s, the little girls in our country were not taught reading, writing, and arithmetic. They were taught how to stitch. But the Moravians are the first ones in our area to actually educate the girls.
Oh, interesting.
And it's right up in Bethlehem.
Yeah, Moravian College.
Yeah, I mean, boys were taught, but the girls were not. And you have to remember, too, that when our European forefathers came to this country, they had to bring everything that they needed. So the cloth became really, really valuable because they needed for clothing, bedding, and everything else. And I think this is one of the reasons why they were stitched, the samplers were stitched, because as soon as they got the cloth, they would stitch their initials on it to show that this was their piece.
Oh, that's interesting.
I have a sampler upstairs that says Sophia, pardon me, whatever her last name is, I forget her name, her bolt cloth. And that goes to show. So that is a good reason why, when what they had to do to maintain or to get their own fabric was they had to grow the flax. Then the flax had to be dampened so that it rots in the fields. Then they had to cut it. Then they had to break the shafts on the flax so they could get to the fibers. Then the fibers have to be beaten to get all the seeds out. Then they have to put it through a very sharp comb in order to get it straight. Then they had to weave it into thread. Then the thread had to be woven into linen. And it wasn't until the cotton gin was invented that became
industrialization.
Sure.
Well, and also initially in colonial times, it was forbidden that you produce your own cloth, I think.
I didn't know
I read
that.
that somewhere.
Did you?
That's one of the things the colonists were so angry about, that
Sure.
they were supposed to be just providing raw material for England to produce the cloth, and then they'd have to buy it back from
Yes,
England, having
exactly.
produced the raw
So-
material. So, they did sort of surreptitiously start weaving their own cloth. And then I guess after the revolution, they could do whatever they
could
liked.
do their own, right? But this is why it was so valuable, and this is why you'll find the hand towels that the little girls made. Sometimes they're thrown in a trunk
Yeah,
because they really didn't want to use them.
right.
But for the samplers, they wanted to display them to show how
Accomplished they were,
creative
yeah.
their daughter was. But most of these children were 11, 13.
It's amazing.
They were young.
Yeah.
They didn't have the good light. They didn't have the magnification.
Right.
They didn't have any of that
So-
that we have today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, you always have a big light and a big magnifier.
I certainly do. People say, "Oh, I can't see that." Well, yeah, you can. With my light and my magnification, you can see just about it. Matter of fact, I'm looking now for a 45 count or a 50 count linen, and I'm anxious to go to the sampler store.
I just bought a piece of 45 count linen.
Where did really?
On Etsy, Jen's Stitching Niche had some. And she was going to do this piece. This is a modern designer, so it's not entirely your thing, but I love her, and her name is Brenda Gervais. and she did this. It looks like a little piece of a sampler. It's a house with some
Okay.
birds and things, and I'm going to attempt that on 45. I've never done it before, so.
And I saw too that the strawberry sampler, she does have the lowest price on the Dazer lamps.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Good tip for Pennsylvania people.
And if you want the top, I have a lot of bottoms.
Great.
I've gone through, I don't
What
know.
do you do to the bottoms?
Well, I'll tell you, I used to have the solid bottom that you had to pick up and carry over
Oh.
here, and there's a 20-pound weight in the
Oh.
bottom of those.
you
So it
weren't
got
shifting
heavy,
yeah.
and then on eBay, I saw somebody had the wheels. And I said,
So you just move it around where
now
you want
we
it.
move the wheel
So
over.
wherever you want to sit.
Exactly.
But do you have a favorite seat that you
I
sit
sit
in?
right here in the couch
Okay, and there's light. There's French doors on either
My
side.
lamp is always on.
Even in the day.
My lamp is on.
How about your favorite type of linen? Like your favorite type of linen, your favorite size to stitch on?
I'm finding that I have to do everything at least 40 count because I have so many samplers that they
get too big.
get too
Yeah.
big, and I really don't want to stitch over one thread anymore.
Right.
If I stitched over one thread, it would have to be like a 32 count.
Uh-huh.
But that's really time consuming. Now I got one sampler yesterday, I got one chart yesterday where you cut the piece of linen 35 inches long.
Oh,
Hmm
that's going to be interesting.
I buy linen by the yard because once you take out a piece of linen 28 by such and such, that really
yeah.
doesn't leave
Where do you
a
buy it
line.
by the yard?
I buy it, I get it wholesale from Zweigart over, I can never remember the place in Jersey. We should go there someday.
Oh, that'd be fun. Field trip.
Yeah, honestly, the girl that bought my good samplers, she buys. It's a retail store, but I can get it wholesale.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I guess because I have a business.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Now, you told me one time that, your favorites are the traditional samplers. You're not so keen on the Quaker where everything's covered.
Right.
When you stitch your samplers, do you jump around or do you work systematically? Like, do you pick a corner and work from there?
I pick the left-hand corner and work from there.
And whatever comes your way, you're going
And
to
then
work
I'll
on
find myself going down the left-hand side because I'm tired of doing the
it. Yeah,
border.
that's what I wonder.
So I'll jump to the middle, but it's still always from the left proceeding to the right.
So you won't say, oh, I want to do this little dog and jump over there and
no,
do
no, because
it.
invariably,
Too easy to make a mistake.
yes, it is too easy to make a mistake.
Yeah.
I make mistakes too, and lots of times I don't correct them.
Ah, good. I'm glad because
You're
I talked
supposed-
about that a lot.
You're supposed to let the evil out of your sampler.
Okay.
So that's what the
I've
mistakes
also
are.
heard, only God is perfect, and so
Oh,
you
yeah.
would put a deliberate mistake in just to.
My
a lot
grandson
of
gets
cultures do
mad
that.
because he's making models and something won't come out right.
Huh.
And I'll say, Daniel, look at my samplers. I can point out where the mistakes are in my when they're fresh. Now
Yeah.
the older ones that I've
You
stitched,
don't remember the
you
mistakes.
don't remember the mistakes.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I
But
hope
there
that
are
I get that.
And I knot my threads, which you're not supposed to do.
And
Or
you use you always like DMC.
I
you said
like the cotton floss.
that's interesting. You knot them.
I knot everything.
Well, and the other thing is that Kay is very lucky because her husband Bob makes all her frames for her. So all these samplers, which you'll get to see later, have these beautiful handmade frames. So you're doing the framing. Who cares if you're not in the back?
I love, yeah. When the spirit moves him, he'll do the frames. He had 5 to frame the last time.
Oh, well,
So
hopefully eventually the
yeah.
spirit will move.
My girlfriend wants to, she wants to take her things and get it framed, and she'd like to give it to Bob, but Bob only does it when the spirit moves him.
Yes.
And
Well,
then
he's an
you'll
artist.
call and say, is he working on my frame? Well, no, he hasn't started it yet, and it's embarrassing. We had a
Well,
lovely lady, Nancy Christensen, stitched the sampler, and she gave it to us to frame. It was over a year. Yeah.
well, you just have to let them know that that's the way it is, and if they're willing to wait, they'll get something beautiful. But they have to be willing.
He's
to
done
wait.
a lot of work for a lot of people, and invariably the wives will call me, how's Bob doing on my... And it's not just samplers, it's furniture or anything.
Oh.
He has to be in the mood to do it.
Well, when he is in the mood, he's extraordinary, so it's worth waiting for. I
Yeah,
think.
right. He better be in the mood before we leave. But I think he'll always be able to do sampler framing up there, too, with
Yes.
the wood shop.
I asked him about that. Kay and Bob sadly are moving, and I said, don't they have a workshop there?
They
And
do.
he said they do, but a lot of other people have already put their tools in, so
he'll have to get used
have
to
to get
those tools.
yeah.
Yeah.
He'll be all right. I'm sure he could build it with his eyes closed with very little
He
tools.
probably could. He did it, when we didn't have the shopsmith that he has
Right.
currently. He built
Right.
things for the church. He built things in Rhode Island. When we lived in Newport, he built things.
Well, I always laugh when I watch those programs like This Old House because they have every possible fancy schmancy tool ever, and you're like, well, how does the ordinary person do this?
Yeah.
But they're fun to watch.
Big
anyway.
investment.
Yeah. We were talking last time I saw you about the different types of samplers. Like there's Pennsylvania samplers and
Right.
English samplers from different centuries and Scottish samplers. And which ones do you like best?
My favorites are the Scottish samplers.
And tell everybody what sort of distinguishes a Scottish sampler.
They have a lot of filigrees on their lettering. They have a lot of. I like a sampler that usually has an alphabet with a house. That's what excites
Everybody
me.
seems to love houses.
Yeah, I do a lot of houses on my plates too. But I like I don't know. They appeal to me. I like the Pennsylvania samplers. If you can determine that they are from Pennsylvania, the New England samplers are a little bit more dressy than I currently like. The 1700 samplers are usually long and narrow, and they're basically showing the different stitches that you can do. They don't have, some of them are appealing to me, but the majority of them are not appealing to me because they will not have a house on it, and they will not have an alphabet on them. So I typically go for anything with a house. I don't like a lot of verse. I have one sampler. I have two samplers, a mother-daughter, and then I also have a sampler, small sampler that I've stitched that a boy did, which is
that's neat.
really unusual.
That's very neat.
Yeah, the little boys did not stitch samplers, but I tend to like the Scottish.
And they often have peacocks, don't they?
The
Scottish
ones.
I think that's one
Yeah,
of the
and
motifs.
the Pennsylvania Germans on my Redware, there are a lot of peacocks.
Really?
A lot of peacocks.
Well, that's interesting.
The farmers, the early farmers in Pennsylvania, the peacocks told the weather. They would cry out, I guess, because a lot of the birds that you see, actually, you think they're a distelfink, they're a peacock.
Oh, how
It's
interesting.
the potter's interpretation of a peacock.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And you see a lot of pomegranates, not on samplers, but on Redware, because the pomegranate stood for fertility.
Okay.
So they're
Fertility of the ground and fertility for your family.
I guess it was of the ground, because most of the potters were farmers.
Uh-huh.
They would farm in the summer months, and they would make Redware dishes in the winter months.
Oh,
They
that's...
would dig their clay, because the clay, it has to be aged too.
Okay.
If I were to dig my own clay, which I do not, you would dig a hole in the ground and you would let it in there and cover it until it got moldy.
Oh, wow. Really? The mold never bothered you working with clay? Excuse me.
I just scrape that layer off. There's just a little bit on the top or the bottom.
But then you know it's seasoned or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So that's very interesting.
I just drink.
Yes. Drink. Pause for drink.
Yes.
We can cut
Alcohol.
that part out. Maybe we'll cut it out. All right. Here's a stitching question for you. Well, we talked about what linen, and is there a type of linen that you like?
No,
Any
no,
linen?
any
Just
linen.
as long as the count is
Right.
appropriate. How about needles? Do you have a favorite needle?
English needles. I found Scarlet Letter has English needles. I ordered 100 of them because
sure you
they
have a good
break.
supply.
The
Yeah.
eye breaks. They bend.
Yeah.
But I do like them. They're very fine. I find that AC Moore, I don't like the DMC needles. They don't carry needles I like. I
Right.
get them from Scarlet Letter.
Right.
They're really beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Nice
Good-
and
good to
thin
know.
gauge. When you're working on 40 count linen, you don't want a big, hefty needle
Right.
going through it.
Right.
Because it'll distort the fabric.
How would you say your stitching has changed or progressed? Like your taste or your things you prefer? Or
I get bored. The one I'm currently working on is almost too easy,
Oh, interesting.
and I'm very bored with it.
Okay.
Plus, it only has basically two colors, green and yellow. So that bores me. But all it had so far was an eyelet stitch, a little bit of a straight stitch.
You like when there's extra types of stitches?
I do like when there's extra. Then I get befuddled when, actually, I get befuddled when you have to do a whole design and it's not charted,
Oh.
and you have to draw it on or something.
Oh, wow. That's very advanced. Okay.
Yes.
That's way
Yeah.
beyond my ability.
Oh, I've done them where you actually have to take the pattern, put it on a light box, and draw the design on your linen
Oh, wow.
with a pen that is acid-free,
Yes.
archival.
Archival.
Archival pens, and you can't remove that pen line, so
You don't want to make a
they
mistake.
scare me. And I know I never look at the whole story of this or the directions because it might frighten me and then I won't do it.
So you just start in.
I just dive right
Oh,
in.
that's interesting, because I have bought things where I start to look at the instructions and I'm like, I just put it away.
Don't do that.
And then I don't do them. And I'm thinking, I really want to get out these things. And like some of the finishing where you have to finish it into an odd shape or something, if I just took my time, I probably could do it.
Yeah.
But
Well, once you have
intimidated.
so much invested in it, then you have to do it.
yes, but you also think, I invested all these hours stitching this. If I goof this up now, I'll be really mad at myself.
Don't look at the story. Just
Yeah, right.
start it.
All right, good tip from Kay.
And I can't say that. There is one sampler I started and I couldn't stand the border. And
You didn't
I
finish it.
put it away. But I'm only working on one project at a time.
Okay, so you're monogamous.
I'm buying more as I'm working, but
Well, that doesn't count.
that doesn't count.
Now, are you fussy about the cardboard and things that you use when
Oh,
you
yeah.
put them back? So it's all.
Yeah, we use acid-free foam board now. I also, I used
Do
to,
you pin or lace?
wait till you hear this. I used to use staples, stainless steel staples on the board to hold the sampler, and I stretch it very tightly. But now I use an archival double-sided tape right on the edge in the front of the sampler board. But then on the back, when I fold the linen over and stretch it, it adheres. You can always pull it off too, and it won't do any damage to the
So
sampler.
it's not that sticky board. It's a
Oh, no,
piece
it's
of foam
not.
core board.
It's acid-free
But then
foam.
you've put the double-sided archival tape.
Yeah, it's only about an inch and a half wide. So I put that on the face of the board where the sampler is going, but then I put more on the back so I can take, because I always allow at least 2.5 to 3 inches on either side of the
So
sampler.
you're not pinning or lacing.
Well, I will pin on the foam board as I do it. I have T-shaped pins that I use.
But you take them out after you tape
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah, I don't lace. I've never done that, but I used to use stainless steel staples.
Which were probably just the same as doing
Right.
the pinning method.
Right. Because invariably you'd have to take them, I'd have a whole mess of staplers that I had to take out because I had to move things around.
Right, if you ever want to change it or.
Right, the archival tape is much easier to
Just looks
find
off.
out that the sampler isn't even, distributed evenly on both sides. And then we try to frame them within, I like the antique ones because they're framed right up to the border. I would like to get them closer, but we're always afraid. I like to allow maybe 1/4 of an inch or so around the sampler itself. I would like to go right up to it. But
Yeah, they
when you're-
did. They didn't leave a big.
No, they don't.
And no matting. Or any kind
No
of,
matting.
Yeah.
No, because then you have to make sure that your mat is acid-free too.
Right.
So we use an acid-free foam board. We use an acid archival tape, which is acid-free. And then my husband builds a slate shadow box so that the sampler sits underneath that. And then there's about a
Just the
1/4 of an
spacers?
inch where the glass actually sits on top of that 1/4 inch. So the glass is about a 1/4 of an inch away from the sampler.
So you don't need spacers.
No.
Okay.
He
Because of the
creates-
way he builds the frame.
Yeah, because of the way he builds
Well,
it,
if you
he
had a
creates-
bob in your back pocket, you could do that. Other people have to use spacers.
No, we never used space. I did put spacers on that little one up there because I did want it touching.
Shall we look at some of them?
Oh, I'd love to show you
All
some
right,
of
let's
these.
All right, so Kay's going to show you, she's going to start with her favorite sampler, which is,
This small one, 32 count. It's 32 count over 1 thread.
trying to get no glare here.
Yeah, it's hard. You want me to turn out the lights?
No, just go closer and see if I can. Over 1. Yikes.
And then you can almost see in the camera, you can almost see the seam where I had to add another piece of linen.
Oh, yeah.
See that? And put the grosgrain around it so it wouldn't show.
Yeah, you really can't see it, but I mean.
Yeah, when I point it out, you can. Along with that cobweb.
Well, we don't care about those. And what style would you say that one is?
I think that's English.
Like
Very English, the
1700s?
building.
So
Yeah.
Probably 1700s.
It had a little verse up at the top, but I think it was, I didn't like it or something, so I put the alphabet up there.
Uh-huh.
And then actually it was a longer sampler, but because I miscounted, I had to delete some of it at the
Well,
bottom.
that makes it your own.
Yeah.
You know? And this, I just have to point out this, something Bob made, which I think is
Yeah.
wonderful. And then more samplers over here.
Yeah, we have more over here. I never get to see those. This one I've stitched at least 3 or 4
The
times.
one on the left.
Yeah.
That's really pretty.
That'll take me about a week.
Wow. So how long would you say you stitch each night?
Probably 2-3 hours. And now I'm stitching during the day too, since I'm not making redware.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Now this, the one I'm looking at the bottom here, what would you say this sampler is? Is this,
know.
you don't know if that's an English one or a... Oh, no, don't look. You don't have to move your thing. Can you tell by looking
It
at
just says wrought in the 11th year of her age, 1773. That's pretty early.
Yeah.
For it has to be probably English. It can't be an American sampler. But yet I don't see any crowns.
Uh-huh. That's what you usually see in the English samplers?
Yeah, you'll see a crown. But it's hard to determine where they are, where they originated, because back when the samplers were being done, there would be a school for the girls to go to, and the headmistress would make the pattern. But then that doesn't mean she's going to stay at that particular school. She might move to another state, another school.
Yeah.
So she takes her patterns with her. There was one very interesting one that, so whether they changed them or not, I'm going to point out something to you that I think is really fascinating. You get an Early American Life magazine, don't you?
Yes.
Well, in this new issue, in one of the houses that one of the houses.
Oh, yes, I
This-
saw that.
Did I point this out
No,
to you?
but I have this magazine.
Okay, if you look at this sampler, I've stitched it over here.
Oh, wow.
Not the same exact thing, but it is a rendition of it.
Oh, how interesting. And that woman has the original, I guess.
Yes, and if you look at it, she's talking about it because Judy has collected and sold many samplers, but this is her favorite. The 19th century piece depicts a rare black figure. And this has got the 2 black figures.
Oh, yes?
And it says, the sampler says they're playing a violin. Well, they're not playing a violin. They're playing the saws that sound like a violin.
Oh, wow. How
It's
interesting.
the same
It is
house.
the saws. Yeah. Look at that.
It's in the little it's not Mary Bailey. This is a different name.
So this probably came from the teacher.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. That's a very pretty one.
And I do like the colors too. Now I think this is Scarlet Letter, which does, I'm sure the back of the sampler, she probably matches the back of the sampler colors, where not everyone does that. Sometimes, because you have to figure that the front is probably faded. So a lot of the people who are charting these samplers will take the original colors from the back,
Okay. That makes sense.
reframed them and sold them.
Hold on.
Because
You were saying this is one of the first ones you ever stitched. It's from the Colonial Williamsburg collection?
in 1977.
Uh-huh. That's very pretty.
Yeah, and a lot of crewel work, and you have to realize how hard that is to do. Crewel's usually done with wool
I
threads.
thought the crewel work came in later, more like the 1800s. Not necessarily?
I guess not.
That's neat.
Well, look at the stump work, though. That's very early.
Yeah.
And that, to me, had a lot of crewel, but that was probably worked with a lot of yarn, too, instead of cotton floss.
Mm-hmm. I have to just pause a moment and show some of the redware. Because people may not know what we're talking about.
Right, they probably don't.
These are some of her beautiful plates and things. If you're lucky enough to live in this area, you can go to the North Penn Art Show, where Kay and Bob will be selling their things this year. What time of year is that show?
It's the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Weekend before Thanksgiving.
Always do that if you don't want. It's hard to see.
A band sampler. Yeah, you don't have a lot of those.
Mm-mm.
But that's pretty. That fits in that spot beautifully.
There's one that I do want, but she doesn't have it in chart form, and I don't want to. I don't want the kit.
The whole kit.
Yeah.
Now, Can I show you were gonna?
That was a lamp.
Well, here's the lamp that we were talking about, but I was thinking about the flax in its natural state, which is interesting for
Right.
how the linen is.
The linen is a crop, and of course, what happens is the crop has to grow, mature, and then they cut it. It rots in the field, and then they bring it in, and it inside the stem of the flax are the linen threads. So this is what it looks like. Each one of these, there's probably a group of.
Looks like hair.
It does. Well, the flaxen hair.
Yeah,
Did you ever hear?
yeah.
Flaxen hair. So this is what the crop looks like after it has been broken and combed with, I forget what they're called. I do know. And then at this point, then it has to get spun into threads. This is a ball of flax thread.
It's quite fine. It actually feels soft. I thought it would feel really scratchy.
No, and then what they'll do, they'll make stricks. This is coarse. This, you can see where this one is a lot more coarse. It all depends on how much they want to work the thread. That is a little coarse. It doesn't look like it's combed as well.
Well, some linen I know when you buy, you'll get like the really fat thread in the middle.
Yeah. Now here's a pretty piece too.
Oh, that's very soft.
Yeah. And then they'll twist them into, these are called stricks. And this feels like hair. And it looks like hair.
Yeah.
So it takes a while for this whole process. I've always wanted to grow flax, but unfortunately I don't have a green thumb.
There's only so many hours in the
That's
day,
right.
you know?
And our property is full of rocks. I don't know if yours is, but
Yes.
ours
Oh,
is.
Hilltown is terrible for rocks. Here's
But what
another
they
piece.
do, they play little games. They'll make a little boy and a little girl out
Oh,
of
fun.
the stricks out of the linen. So it's always, it's interesting. I always wanted to spin linen cloth, but
Yeah.
I don't have enough time now.
Exactly.
So I can display it.
Right.
We also sold 2 of these.
Oh, that is pretty.
Isn't that pretty? If you're into pinks.
Mm-hmm.
But they were framed, of course, before we knew what we were doing, too. It's probably on a piece of cardboard, which is the worst thing ever.
You could redo it.
I could, and you can see some of the staining already coming.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That's,
That's because of the cardboard, you think?
yeah.
Okay.
I should take it apart and do it. This one is done in silk.
Oh, wow.
That I had to, a girlfriend and I were able to take the book and actually count the linen in the book and make the charts.
Sorry for the glares. So you said you don't usually use silk, though?
No, I don't. But that I thought, since we charted our own graph, I would use silk. But I found that I don't like it any better than the DMC, and why pay
Why
the
spend
price?
the money? Yeah.
Yeah, and in the silk.
It's not plumper. I've heard people talk about it being sort of plumper.
No, I've not.
You've only
used
done
it
it.
enough. And the colors were limiting. When did I stitch this? Oh, I did it very lightly. What does that say? 1988.
Okay.
And I was in Texas too, so we didn't have
couldn't get as
many
many
needlework
things,
shops. Yeah.
Well, I think this cross stitching has really had a big renaissance recently.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful art,
Yeah.
and there's billions out there.
Yeah. Oh, these are fun.
Yeah, this is from the Porcupine Collection. It was, I don't know whether that's DAR Museum or what.
That's really.
It was a mother and daughter who put the charts together. It's really large. But this one, I think I did it either really fine or... Now, this is what I do to the sample.
Oh, interesting. So it's got all the information on there. Okay, the Hannah Lancaster
Oh, my
sampler.
golly. This is over 1 thread, 27 count.
Ah.
That's
Quite
why,
challenging.
That's why it's not real big, but
That's
it is...
the understatement of the year.
it is it would be a very big sampler.
Yeah.
Hannah Lancaster, English piece. Okay.
It looked, yeah.
England, 1838. So I do put the number, I do put the date when I finished it, and I give the history if there is any, and then I usually put the size for some reason. We used to take this one to shows to show that we frame samplers, and people would say, well, how much is it? And I would say $2,500, which would shut them up.
It's mine. You
Yeah,
can't have
well,
it.
it's over 1 thread. You just
Yeah,
can't
it's
get rid of it.
amazing.
I have stitched, this one's a New Jersey sampler.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a colorful.
This one's interesting because the girl who stitched it put her name throughout the sampler.
Oh, fun.
Her name is Martha Smith.
So she highlighted those letters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's funny. How about the one above it?
I don't know what this is.
Sorry to make you take them all down.
I don't know.
Lucy Red Sampler. Homespun Elegance.
Well, there were 3 families within 50 miles of each other. Fredericksburg, Virginia area.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. What we try to do too, now these were all framed. You can see the space in between the sampler and the glass.
Yes.
If you look at that.
And that's just the way Bob builds the frame.
Yeah.
That's neat.
We try to put the current ones under old glass, which I love.
Oh, where do you get old glass?
For people who are getting rid of their windows.
Oh.
You have to go around and look at trash.
Yeah. You have to be a good trash picker, huh?
A lot of the big pieces, my sister has a house up in Vermont,
Uh-huh.
and they have the big windows.
Oh.
So when we were up there one time, my husband was playing golf, and my sister and I went out, and here they're pulling all these windows, putting them up against a street light. And the workers were there, and I said, what are you going to do with those windows? And they said, we're going to throw them out. And I said, well, could I pick through them? He said, sure.
Oh, wow.
Well, my husband barely had enough room in the back of the car to put his golf clubs. I said, we can just leave them here.
Yeah. The glass is what's important here.
And we have a dog pen out back, so the glass is in the dog pen, a chain link fence around it and stuff. And now it's been there for so many years, you don't even have to try to take the glass off the window frame because it's rotted.
Oh, so you traded a...
Yeah, I gave her the little sampler on the left and the mantle that I said I've stitched at least 4 times.
Oh, that's neat. And she made you
She
the
made
theorem.
me the strawberry
That's
sampler.
so fun.
Because Pennsylvania samplers will have a strawberry border,
Oh, I didn't know
or
that.
so they say. And I thought, well, she did.
Yeah.
She was magnificent.
Well, I think also the neat thing is by you going to all these shows all these years, you know, you got to meet so many different artisans and sort of trade
Yeah.
their work for yours or pick up little bits here and there. And, you know, it's just fascinating.
When I just ordered a sampler chart from a woman in Rhode Island who I know who she is. She used to do the York show with us. She did the Mercer Museum show a couple of times. And when I ordered the chart, I asked her if she remembered me. And she wrote back and said, of course I remember
that's
you.
neat.
Do you still have rabbits? Do you live in that fabulous house? Do you do this? Yeah, so it's fun. You know, we
Lots of friendships over the years.
You do, and that's what's fun about doing the shows, too,
Yeah.
because you see these people only maybe
Yeah.
once or twice a year.
Yeah, you're on the same circuit of the
Yeah.
early American
But
shows.
we've been doing it for
pretty.
so many years. Yeah, I don't know what's going to become of that.
If you thought we were finished,
Oh, no,
there's many more.
the best is yet to come. These are
Best are yet to come.
all pretty. This is a Quaker picture.
Which one?
I stitched this one 3 or 4 times. This little one's Quaker. The tradition, it's a wedding sampler.
Oh, neat.
The Quakers would planted 2 trees out front, one for the bride, one for the groom.
And so there are the 2 trees in the house.
And I stitched this for my daughter's girlfriend who was getting married. And then she proceeded to divorce him and say, could I pick out the name on it and put her new name on it?
Oh, no.
Yeah, and that was really hard because it was all mounted on the board and I had to stitch it as it.
Oh.
And then,
My, what's this one over here?
oh, that's fun.
I like the house.
The ladies on that one are selling brooms. Can you see
Oh,
the brooms?
yes. Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's funny. It almost looks like a bagpipe, the way it's over her shoulder.
they're brooms. They're selling brooms.
Oh, that's
That
nice.
basically is easy, although it's huge.
It's just mostly cross-stitch, or?
I don't know. That's nailed to the wall so much I can't
Yeah,
take it off.
don't
I
worry.
should have brought my book, though.
Yeah, your little book would have been our
Yeah.
guidebook. What else do you want to show me?
This one was very difficult, the pink one. See the old glass?
Oh, yeah.
Look what it does.
You can see it wavy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's so much clearer than the current glass, too.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Here I turned sideways for just a few moments. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that.
This one.
Oh, I love that one.
What's this one?
That was from Scarlet Letter. She did it on the front of just cross stitch magazine.
Uh-huh.
But she did it in green, so I didn't want to do it on green linen. So I changed it around.
Yeah, looks great.
Yeah, I like what he did to the frame on that one too. It's a little different than what we usually do.
Yeah. So he'll do all the staining and everything on the frame.
Yeah, he likes to
Painting
false
or
grain.
staining. Or...
And a lot of them have the gold fillet around it, but
Uh-huh.
I like that too. And I seem to like anything that has a border. I love the zigzag.
Yeah. Something very
I don't know where that is. I don't know where that's from.
Don't take it down. Don't take it down.
I might not. My
Yeah.
cleaning woman knocked that one down.
You know what the
There's
worst...
some good. Now this is the one I had to draw all this on.
Oh. So what's the concept? You get the pattern, but then...
Yeah, she gives you the pattern exactly the size for the linen. So I do have a light box. So you take the paper, you put it down on the light box, then you take the linen and draw it.
Wow.
And I don't think you can even see any of the black lines. You know, it was a very fine point pen.
No.
But you had to draw it on so you could stitch it.
That's too much work.
This is the exemplar, rather.
Yes,
Yeah.
sampler or whatever.
As sampler, yeah.
Uh-huh.
When before I did samplers, I did decorated eggshell ornaments that I made.
Oh, wow.
And I would hinge doors on them and everything. I called myself a cockatier. This is Scottish.
Oh, that's wild. Look at that.
And you can see a lot of the filigree that really identifies
Yes, look at
what
those
the
letters.
Scottish is. There's one downstairs that has that.
It's like the Bargello sort of
Yeah,
thing
I
at the
love the
bottom.
flame stitch.
Is that what it is, flame stitch?
Or Bargello.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing.
Cool.
And that one has it too. I don't know that
Oh,
is.
yeah.
That is.
Scottish one or not?
I don't think that's Scottish.
Uh-huh.
That's early too, 1717.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's funny because so many of these things are faded, you know, that you find them now. You don't think about them being vibrant when they first did them.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's like if you go over to the Peter Wentz house,
Yeah.
the colors it's an old colonial house you can visit, but the colors are bright.
Oh, they did.
Yellows and orange and stuff. And he said, yeah, they would love to do that.
Well,
if they could.
because everything was so dull.
Yeah, there was no light.
Well, look at Mount Vernon. Did you ever see the dining room Mount
Years
Vernon?
ago.
It's a bilious green. And then, of course, our daughter worked for Colonial Williamsburg, and you go in the With House, and you almost want to puke at some of the colors that they used. Because they are vibrant. This is, I don't know if you can see this. I need to turn on lights.
Here, if I get close.
That was from Philadelphia. I love that. I think that's a beautiful sample.
Oh, that's neat.
Especially the way he did the framing for it.
Do you know what distinguishes it as Philadelphia? Or it's just,
The fact that it says it's
it
on
says
Fifth
it's Philadelphia. Yeah, that'll do.
Street. Yeah, Victoria Delacroix.
That's really pretty. What is that? Is that over one? No, it
You
looks
can
so
take
tiny
this
though.
one
No,
off.
don't take
No, I can't. This one's easy. It's dusty too. 1 and 2 threads on. Did I not say what count? Somebody didn't tell us what count it was.
Uh-huh.
The assembler, yeah.
So at the assembler, they will only have certain patterns for a certain number of times, and then
Well, that I didn't know.
doesn't she sort of? Do you want me to help you?
No, I got it.
Doesn't she then
What's
sort of
the
story
story?
behind this one?
It has metal sequins on it.
Oh my word! Look at that.
This is from the assembler too, I believe. And it was so pale. Hers tend to be pale. Scarlet Letter does vibrant. Let's see, where is she? It's a Scottish sampler.
Oh, interesting.
It's on 40 count linen, over 1 and 2. The ones over the bed that you took, they were special enough that I put 14 karat gold leaf on those frames.
Oh wow.
I did a couple with 14 karat gold leaf.
They have to be your absolute favorites, though.
The pink one is. The green one was easy. The pink one was very difficult.
This is Kay's grandson's favorite
Because of the bird.
because he likes the bird.
I have to show you the one that's very similar. You notice the border on this one.
Yeah.
We'll look at one downstairs that has the same base.
Oh, interesting.
Uh,
Same time period, same.
I'm not sure. No, different. I don't know. I'll have to look.
This says 1801.
And look at the strawberry border. You'll have to wonder if this is Pennsylvania. Probably these are Pennsylvania.
Oh, because you said Pennsylvania is always the strawberry.
It's
Or
English.
often the strawberry. But this is English.
But then again, where is the woman who had the charts?
Right. Who knows? Maybe she moved to Pennsylvania.
This is 40 count.
Uh-huh. Very pretty.
See, I've
So
got.
how about this guy?
Oh, isn't he cute?
Yeah, I love this little one.
That's scarlet letter.
That's so pretty.
I had a terrible time with this one. Now this one you can see. You know those pens that
Yes.
you put on the linen and you lick. Well, believe it, this undulating border. I had more trouble with that. See that line?
Oh, yeah.
I
Now,
had-
what is that? You put on...
You can draw on the linen and you wet it and it goes away.
Oh,
Those blue pens.
yes.
Yeah, but I had so much
Trying to get
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
But
trying to get
this
the
was
line.
intense.
Yeah.
But I love it.
That's beautiful.
Watch your step.
Okay.
I'm going to sell that one too.
Oh, that's pretty. There's the houses. Oh, it looks like the farmer and his wife. That's
Yeah.
cute.
But there's again the strawberry border.
Yeah. Interesting to know if that's
This might be the one I bought up in.
Pennsylvania. This one.
Lived in Wakefield, a small town. Now, West Yorkshire County, England.
Really? Gosh. So
Far for the. Now that is Sturbridge Village.
Oh, fun.
That's Sturbridge Village. Now that one is not, doesn't have any space on it, and if you look really carefully, you can see the haze on the glass.
Oh.
Look at this roof. If you look,
Oh my word! Look at those
you
stitches.
you can see the haze.
Well, I'm just looking at your stitches.
This one I have over
Wow.
the mantle, but I stitched it again
Oh,
for
that's
sale. Isn't it pretty? It's called
Yes.
Sarah's Garden. It's a Quaker Sampler.
Oh, that's pretty.
So that probably is Pennsylvania.
So you do like some Quaker samplers.
Yeah.
I
I
like
like
certain style.
I like the natural linen too.
Yeah, that's very pretty. Lovely. Is there one here?
Yeah, that's a hard hanger. Look at that. That's way back.
Oh wow! I tried stitching on hard hanger once. I wasn't crazy about it.
No, because you could split the thread.
Yeah, I found
Yeah.
it, and it was I was living in Britain, and a girl gave me. It was a Danish kit, some sort of Danish
See?
kit, and I was
Eva
like,
Rosenstrand,
yeah, it was.
probably.
It was.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. And I was like, oh,
Don't want to do it, huh?
Don't think I want to do this.
Yeah,
I
that's
still
one
have
that'll go in the trash probably.
it.
'cause-
No.
Yeah. Well, look, you can see the spots appearing because we didn't know how
Oh.
to do that. Look at all this.
Yeah.
It's probably cardboard, you know.
Well, you can redo it on
I
the
don't-
Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see
See
if
the
we can buy-
filigree?
Oh yeah.
This came from Scarlet Letter. The top is Scottish, but something happened to the bottom, and she put the houses in.
So Scottish ones don't often have houses.
No, I can't say that. No, they have houses.
They do,
Yeah.
but she just combined two.
Yeah, she did.
It's like when you, what's that called, a marriage, when you do it
Right.
with the furniture. You have a top from something and the
Right.
legs from something else. Yeah, look at all that filigree.
Yeah, that's pain in the neck, really.
That's cute though. I really like it.
That used to be one of my favorite samplers. I did that a long time ago, too.
Yeah, that's a really nice one. So say that again on camera. This is a Whitman sampler?
That's in the Whitman collection of samplers. Like your Whitman candy boxes used to be floral.
Yes, they always had
that.
like the little
Yeah.
cross-stitch floral.
It's challenging to do a black one. You
Oh,
have to
yeah.
sit with something white on your lap so you can
Yes.
see the spaces.
Yes.
And I don't know whether that's on hard hanger or what.
That would drive me
Oh,
crazy. Those tiny little stitches on black.
Yeah, it's like a petty point, and I always like petty point.
Yeah. Wow. You're a better man than I.
I'll listen to what Bob
I was going to say, here's some Scottish music. We better find a
This
Scottish
one is
sampler.
Scottish.
Oh, there we go. How appropriate.
That one is Scottish.
That's really pretty too.
I used to have it in a green frame, and I got to the point where I couldn't stand it, so I just got the black paint.
I like that.
And then
It
put
looks really
blotches
pretty.
of red.
Yeah, it looks very pretty the way it looks like the, I forget what that's called, but it looks like you done it a purpose.
Yeah, I did. Spongy.
Yeah.
This is, I don't know what this is. This is cute. I like the sun on this one. The sun, isn't he cute? Look at him. He's adorable.
Yeah. Oh, let's see if I can get in close to him. Oh, wow.
He's cute. He's over one thread.
Yeah, look at that. Ugh.
Looks pretty fine. I don't. I'm not crazy about it, but
I like the deer, too.
yeah,
the
they're
top.
pretty fine too. Look at the little cross-eyed.
I can't even. Oh, wow.
Now this does have a crown, so you have to think that it probably is English.
Yeah.
And I don't know that 1796. See, the Pennsylvania, this country is usually 1820, 1830 for the samplers in our country. So a lot of these are probably English because they're earlier than what you'd find here.
Right. Oh, that's very handsome, I think.
Yeah, it looks. I like the frame too. You know, people used to come to us and they'd say, "Well, I want a blue frame or something." Well, you don't do that. You take the sampler around and you put it with different colors to see what looks good with it.
Right. You're not,
So that's what
you're
we
not
used to-
decorating your house,
This one
you're
has
decorating the sampler.
A cute bunny. We used to have
I didn't
house
see it.
bunnies.
Oh,
We had rabbits running around the house.
oh. The only problem with that is they chew the wires, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
They do. They chew the back of the furniture too. Whatever gets in their way.
But you house train them. I mean, you can house
Yeah,
train
they
them.
were litter boxed.
Yeah.
Our favorite one was litter box, but they do chew. They have to chew because they have to break down their teeth
Right.
just like a horse does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I told you about the border in my bedroom.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't that neat?
That is beautiful.
Look at the shepherdess though.
Oh.
Same border. Same
Oh
base.
yeah, there's the same. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. Look at the base and the
Yeah,
border.
little shepherdess with her lamb.
Oh, I wish I could get. There we go. No glare. That's lovely.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
And I do like that red one too.
Yeah.
My girlfriend in Texas stitched that one, and we did the framing for her. It was absolutely huge. I think that one might be over one thread, or if it isn't over one thread, it's very tiny.
Yeah.
Now that definitely has to be English.
That's so pretty.
Very busy.
Yeah.
Almost looks like Quaker because it is so busy.
Uh-huh.
I tend not to like the German, and I tend not to like Adam and Eve for some reason.
Uh-huh. But that's very pretty.
This is noble fur. Look at it.
Oh, it looks fantastic. Here we are, almost the end of January.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get some noble fur next year.
But see now if you these are the lamps I want to take. This one has roses around the border.
Oh wow, this one case says you have to cut the linen how long?
35. So it almost takes a yard of linen.
So when will you be finished the one you're working on and start on this one?
Not long. I don't care for I just got this chart. This is one of the charts that doesn't give me the colors. Isn't that cute though?
Yeah, take it down and see if they can help you.
And then this one, I forget whether this one. No,
I've
this
done
one
some Stacey
doesn't.
Nash. I just don't do as ambitious a Stacey Nash as you do.
This one doesn't give me the DMC colors either.
Uh-huh.
And then I got. Oh, this is the one I'm working on.
Okay.
Yellow and green, yellow and green.
Oh yeah, I see. It's gonna be fun when it's done though. If you can muscle through it.
Oh, I will.
So how long would you say it takes you to do one?
Well, my last one was dated the 22nd of December. Not dated, but I finished it 22nd of December, and then I started this
So
one.
you just work in a tiny little hoop,
Yeah.
like just the very smallest little area.
Yep.
That's interesting.
I just move it constantly.
Uh-huh. And so you just stitch in hand with a tiny little hoop.
So I've done this one in a month. This is how far I've gotten in a month's time.
Wow.
But it's boring. I mean, it had eyelet stitch all over the place.
Uh-huh.
These are all eyelet. But now I'm into just the straight cross stitch, and I find it.
Going faster.
And I'd like to add some more red to it, or
Do you think you will?
it calls for a little bit of red someplace. I forget where.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you get bored.
Yeah.
But the reason I get through it is because I want to start something new.
Right. And so you make yourself finish.
I make
before you-
myself finish.
That's very disciplined if you can.
I have, yeah, right.
Not me.
Really?
No, I used to be a monogamous stitcher, and now I'm afraid I am all over the place.
No, I tried quilting,
Uh-huh.
and I would hurry up and do it so I could get back to my
Stitching is really
cross.
your love.
Yeah. I tried rug hooking. I was going to get into that. We did basket weaving for a while.
You can see baskets.
didn't go for that.
Well, you've managed to do it whether you didn't love it or not. I mean, you produced some lovely things anyway.
I'll take those two tomorrow. This
Yeah.
is kind of, I don't know, there's something very direct about it. It's
Yeah.
it's not homey or it's not comfortable looking. It's just there.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that lovely visit to Kay's house and all her pretty samplers and getting to see her redware and hearing about the history of redware and samplers and flax making and linen making and all the things we talked about. There was so much more we could have talked about. She is a fountain of knowledge and her husband is just as incredible. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I will see you next week. Until then, do lots of stitching, and I hope you're all well and having fun, and all good things to you. Bye.